Good afternoon, everyone. This is Debbie Royce, AYCDC's Corporate Secretary. I'd like to welcome everyone to this afternoon's meeting. As you can see today, we have a video of our directors, so we'll begin by just taking a quick roll call. Chairman Stephen Cohen.
Present.
Sean Austin.
Here.
Julian Beckford.
Here, thank you.
John Hayer. Daniel Kumar.
Here.
Cy Richardson.
Present.
Ethel Tias.
Present.
And Gib Vacconi.
Present.
Okay, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Chairman Cohen, you can begin.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I should say thank you to Debbie and Rich and the staff for putting together what is our premiere of a video version of our board meeting. There's been a suggestion which I think we are going to take to heart about making sure that in the future that perhaps we have the staff who are so inclined join also by video. But for today, it's the board members who have an opportunity to appear if they have the technical ability to appear by video. And I just thank everybody on the staff for putting this together. It actually arose out of a suggestion at the last meeting, and I'm glad we were able to accomplish this efficiently and quickly. I should begin by saying good afternoon. For those of you who don't know, my name is Steve Cohen. I haven't been around that long. I was recently appointed by Governor Cuomo to serve as the chair of Empire State Development and also of this corporation. I'm glad that so many of the board were able to join today, and I welcome everybody to today's meeting. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Atlantic Yards Community Development Corporation for Thursday, December 10th, 2020. Before I get started, I will remind everyone to please mute the audio portion of your Zoom and your phones if you're on a phone until you're ready to speak. Also, for the record, I will ask that anyone wishing to speak, please be sure to state your name before you begin, given that not everybody is utilizing the video for this meeting. I'd like to note also for the record that due to continuing public health concerns and as authorized by an executive order of the governor, this meeting is being conducted by video and teleconference. I will also note for the record that the public was given an opportunity to comment on today's agenda by submitting their written comments by 4:30 p.m. yesterday. I'd like to state for the record that the comments were received, that there were comments received from the public and will be addressed during the public comment portion of today's agenda. Again, I also am just going to point out my own regret that this is the method by which we're operating. We are living through obviously curious and unfortunate times when it comes to being able to conduct public business, and we are doing the best we can do. And in this instance, it means comments are written. The directors have received the meeting materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask any question at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of today's item. And if so, I would ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such an item. Anybody with a conflict of any kind? Hearing silence, I assume that the answer is no. Therefore, I'd like to move to the substantive portion of our meeting, and I'll call on Marion Phillips to provide us with his president's report. This item is being presented for your information only, and no vote will be required. Marion, please begin whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Steve. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know this has been a very difficult time for all of us, and I know that with so much of the project still moving forward and people remaining home, it has been very difficult for the residents and our neighbors as well. Allow me just to give us a quick update. The fourth quarter of 2020 has been quite prosperous and the project is moving forward. We currently have 4 buildings under construction. I'm going to provide a quick project and construction update, but also note that Scott Solish and from Greenland and Amir Stein from from the other developers is on the line, and we'll be able to answer questions as well that you may have. When we last met, B4 and B15 were in the superstructure phase at over 20 stories high. Currently, B4 and B15 have topped off. They're with windows now, glass curtain wall. The facade installation is progressing. Electrical, mechanical, and plumbing work continues inside the buildings, and fit out of residential apartments have begun. At B12 and B13, all foundational piles have been installed, and preliminary work on the foundational wall has begun. Excavation activity is ongoing. There will be an increase of truck activity through February. The trucks are following the approved route protocols and are accessing B12 and B13 sites through the Pacific Street Q area. Implementation of COVID-19 safety measures continue, with the use of face coverings being required at all times. Mandatory temperature checks before entry into the site is needed before entry into the site is granted. The developer and construction team continue to stress to the workers the importance of abiding by physical distancing directives and being a good neighbor while out in the community. The developer is working on final approval from the LIRR, the railroad, for substantial completion of the train yards. A presentation will be made to you when the update is available. There are no updates on Site 5, which is across west of Atlantic Ave, Flatbush Ave, Flatbush Ave, across the street. The condemnation proceedings have been stayed until resolution of the litigation between P.C. Richards, Forest City, Brookville. ESD has not taken any action at all to commence any environmental review for any aspect of Site 5 modifications. The project's affordable housing obligations remain the same. The developer is actively working on the design and development of the platform that will be over the train yard. Updates will be provided to the directors as more information becomes available. I know, Ethel, you asked, is this a good news meeting? And that is good news, to be able to have 4 buildings under construction. And as I look at the site map of the Atlantic Yards project, we're really moving forward nicely when you consider once B4 is finished, the entire arena block will be completed. When you look at B15 just east of 6th Ave, and then you have B5 that is next being planned. Also, you'll have the block on Dean between Carlton and Vanderbilt, the southern portion, where you'll have 11, 12, 13, and 14 completed. I think things are going great, and that's all good news. And so we're very happy, even in this difficult time where things are slowing or things are delayed, that this project is still being able to battle through all of this and provide much needed affordable housing to this community and to the city of New York. So that is my report, and this aspect of my report. I'll be more than happy to take questions. As I said, Scott and Amir are on the call. Also on the call are Richard Dorado from our legal department, Rachel from our environmental team, and Toby as well. Then between the 6 of us, we should be able to answer most, if not all, of your questions.
Madam Chair, provide the community relations report now, or should I wait?
Hold on, I think we do have one question. If I'm not mistaken, I saw a hand, or more accurately, a finger go up. You're on mute.
I don't know if this is the time for questions. I suspect that the answers to some of the things I'm going to ask would be provided by the development team. If this is the time to ask those questions, then I will. Yeah. Otherwise, I can wait until the rest of the presentations have happened.
Gib, why don't you ask these questions first? I believe that's Gib's voice, right?
That's me.
Perfect. And then Toby, let's go ahead and do the construction part of this report first, and then we'll do the community relations part of it next.
Okay, great. All right, thanks for pointing that out. I'll save my community relations questions then, and I'll talk about the construction questions first.
And I'm sorry, Director Bocconi, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that Amir Stein is actually not on the line. He had a conflict and unfortunately will not be on the line. I neglected to update Marion's notes at that point, but we do have Scott Solish available if there are any questions.
Okay, do we have representatives from any other representatives from either TF Cornerstone or the Brodsky organization on the call?
No, we have Scott Solish who's on the line, and he should be able to answer any questions. But if there are specific items for either TF Cornerstone or the Brodsky organization, I can note that and follow up accordingly. Okay,
so my first question goes to if there's an update on the expected affordability levels for buildings B12, B13, B15, and B4. It looked like from what we've heard before, they were going to elect Affordable New York tax abatement. And I wonder if there has been a decision made about which option is being elected.
So I'm going to ask Toby to answer that question, please.
Sure. Thank you, Director Riccone. There are no updates on the affordability rates for B4, B15, B12, and B13. You're correct that all 4 buildings will deliver 30% affordable housing, but the specific AMI bands and unit counts are not available yet. Once they become available, we'll be sure to distribute that information to the directors and also make note the information about the affordable housing lottery process to members of the community.
I think that the information about the units has been distributed in the latest Exhibit M that we've received.
Right, no, that's correct. What I mean by units is as it relates to the AMI bands, like what units will be under which AMI bands and the income bands for the affordable housing lottery application itself.
Okay. All right, the rest of my questions go to development on blocks 1120 and 1121, the 2 rail yard blocks. About a year ago, we heard that there was the construction for the platform would commence this year. I don't believe that's happened yet. I wondered if we can get an update on what the schedule for that is, if a contractor has been retained for that project at this point, and what the expected duration will be for the 1120 platform that was supposed to start this year.
So
I had the same question. Thanks, Gibbs.
Okay, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Gibbs. Let me take a first crack at that, and then if Scott wants to jump in on the part about has a development team or a contractor been selected, and I'm sure he'll elaborate on my answer. The short part of this answer is the LIRR has not come to a final completion of their work, and so that's delaying the construction of a platform. That's where we are. ESD is really working with the LIRR as well as with the developer to make sure that we can get to that place in a quicker manner, in a quicker time frame, but that's the gist of that answer. Scott, have you all selected a contractor so that once the LIRR does sign off, you're able to move forward?
Yeah, we do have a contractor retained. We haven't announced who that contractor is yet, but someone that has tremendous amounts of experience working directly with the Long Island Railroad and privately on transit projects for the MTA. So there is someone on board. Right, the railroad is finishing some of their work in the yard, as well as ongoing review as they've adapted to their operations through COVID, which obviously is, we've all read the news, has had a tremendous impact on the MTA and its operating agencies. But we have been working with them through this to prepare for the platform development.
Well, I'm glad to hear that a contractor has been selected. The question, Scott, is the contractor's scope block 1120 only, or is it 1120 and 1121? And what's your outlook right now for when construction will start and what the duration will be?
As soon as we have more information from the railroad, we'll be able to provide more specifics on the schedule and specifically the duration of these projects. A lot of it depends on the railroad's operational schedule, its needs for track usage during construction. And there is the ability to work with the same contractor. Obviously, once you get that institutional knowledge, you want to retain it and be able to leverage it for the entire platform project. Optimize the good and protect yourself for the bad. As soon as we have more concrete answers on the schedule, I don't want to issue partial answers. But our intention is, as soon as we have the more concrete information from the railroad, we'll be able to come out with a full plan to review with the directors in the community.
Okay, and is it still your expectation that that each platform will take approximately 3 years to complete?
Again, a lot of that depends on the railroad's operational schedule and their needs for track usage during construction. But that's a conservative and relatively safe estimate for duration of each scope phase. Sorry, not scope. Okay,
great. And I'm sorry if I'm hogging the questions, but we don't meet all that frequently, so they do sort of build up over time. I want to talk next about buildings B5 and B6, which are being carried in Exhibit M with 50% affordable apartments. Where do you stand with respect to financing those buildings to be able to deliver the 50% affordable, and how do you expect that financing to work?
Can we look at Exhibit M for what it is, which is every time that the developer goes for financing or designs a building and determines what the program is, Exhibit M gets amended. And so right now you're looking at Exhibit M from what was written many years ago. And as you also know, B4 was amended, B15 was amended. I think to look at it now and ask that question when they have not designed the building or designed the program or sought financing for the program will not be an accurate answer today for what could happen in the future. Well, I don't know, Scott, unless you're prepared to answer that, Scott.
Well, Marion, with respect, the numbers for B5 and B6 have been changing in the last few Exhibit M's. I mean, they're being updated, so they're not numbers that were written years ago and forgotten about. It's part of the update to Exhibit M, which is why I'm asking the question. I mean, I guess I understand maybe I'm not asking if there's been a commitment to financing, but I would be interested to hear if there's an as of right program that the developers expect to be able to utilize to finance those buildings in their affordable apartments.
Okay.
Well, I would say to cherry pick off Marion's answer and understanding your question, Gib. I mean, one, the commitment for delivering the affordable housing is what we're upholding and what we're following in the project requirements. And but to your second question, Gib, I think you're exactly right. I mean, there are numbers of off-the-shelf programs that HDC or HPD issues. Obviously, there's been a significant impact on city and state and federal financing abilities through the last 12 months as the budgets continue to shake themselves out going forward. I'm looking to 2021 and beyond with what seems to be a new mayoral administration. There's going to be, we continue to monitor. So the financing, the public budgets, the financing markets, they'll all play a factor into what eventually gets, what each of those programs are, understanding the requirements of the development agreement and the general project plan, and the various documents that go along with it. So I think it's just, we continue to speak with lenders, we continue to speak with, and monitor city and state agencies to see what the priorities are in terms of financing opportunities. And we're continuing to look at the building. So I think we talked about it at our last meeting. We've talked about it at the quality of life meetings that we have, advanced the design of the B5 project. We've studied early design and pre-development work for B6 and B7. And, we continue to look at it and then try and match it up with the opportunities in the public and private financing markets.
Okay, so I guess it's a fair statement. You're not necessarily targeting any particular term sheets for financing those buildings that, let's say, are that are being offered today.
No, there's not a set target off any of those term sheets.
Okay.
that also means that we haven't ruled out any of the term sheets either.
I have a question.
Oh, one moment. This is Debbie Royce, Chairman Cohen. I'd like to just note for the record that Director John Hayer has joined by telephone. And you're on mute, Chairman Cohen.
I noticed, and I will note that briefly he was with us by video, but he now seems to be only on audio, which is fine.
Yes.
And I believe we have another director who has a question, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, this is Ethel Tyus asking, following up on Mr. Bocconi's inquiries. I'm sorry I'm not keeping up to date, but it would seem to me that documents like Exhibit M would be posted on the website. Am I right? Especially in advance of our meetings. Am I correct?
Exhibit M is not posted on ESD's website. The document has been made available for the directors, and information on what's listed in Exhibit M has been provided to the directors, but it's not a document that is posted on ESD's website.
So I guess I need to reform my question. The updated Exhibit M was sent to us in advance of this meeting. I must have missed it.
Yeah.
The most recent version of Exhibit M was distributed to the directors a few months ago, in addition to details on the information about the affordable housing unit count at B12 and B13. That information has, of course, been shared with the public during the quality of life meetings, but Exhibit M itself is not listed on ESD's site.
Okay, thank you. Please put me back on the list for quality of life meetings. I've not been getting those notices. Thank you.
We will.
Any other questions at this time? If not, I think we're Marion, if you want to continue.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Toby to go ahead and give the quality of life report. As you know, we've had a couple of quality of life meetings, and I do understand that the quality of life meetings are not perfect, but we are able to share information from the Barclays, from the project site, and what is going on. I do appreciate all of the patience the community is having with us. We're able to really send the questions in. We're able to answer the questions, and so I do appreciate it. I just want to say for the record, I do appreciate the effort that Toby Jayasimi and the entire Atlantic Yards team puts into putting on and working through the quality of life meetings. Far, far different and far more complicated than going to stand up inside the Shirley Chisholm building. But I do appreciate your efforts, Toby. But I'm going to let Toby do this part of the report.
Good afternoon, directors. Good afternoon, everyone. Sincerely hope that this finds you all well. I personally still can't believe that we're in December. It feels like March, the 1000th day of March 2020, but we'll carry on in good spirits. As Marion noted, there have been 2 virtual quality of life meetings since the directors last met in July. There was a quality of life meeting in September and another one in November. On average, the attendance for both meetings is somewhere between 20 to 30 participants. And during the meetings, we have representation from the local community boards and elected officials such as Majority Leader Cumbo, Comptroller Scott Stringer, and Representative Yvette Clark. In terms of the meeting format, the meetings, of course, are held via Zoom conferencing with a PowerPoint presentation that's available for view. The meeting details are sent in advance of the meeting. There's no sign up or additional registration that's required. Those interested may send in their questions and comments in advance of the meeting to ESD by email. And then during the meeting, there's the ability to send in questions and comments via the Zoom chat feature directly to the presenters, or to utilize the ESD email account to send in comments during the meeting. Presenters answer and respond to questions as they come into the chat. And then at the end of the meeting, all of the comments that are received via email, via chat, those notes that are made as it relates to the meeting are put together in a summary and posted on ESD's website, in addition to the PowerPoint presentation, which are both up on ESD's Atlantic Yards page. What I would now like to do is just provide an overview and some details on some of the topics that have been discussed at the past quality of life meetings, and also note some general quality of life and community concerns that have been brought to our attention in the last few months. Like I mentioned, of course, there have been comments and questions about the meeting's virtual format, with some folks inquiring about the format of the chat, noting who's in attendance, whether or not there can be an opportunity for participants to speak or to use audio and video. There's also been, as Mr. Bocconi has inquired about, questions about the AMI distribution and the lottery information for B4, B15, B12, and B13, as well as the project's affordable housing obligation and development schedule. There have been inquiries about the B5 design and also the construction timeline for that building, which would be the first over the platform. As relates to the Long Island Railroad, of course, there have been questions and comments with regards to the substantial completion for the rail yard, the commencement of work on the platform, but also more recently, there's also been some questions and concerns and complaints that have come up with regards to after-hours work that happens in the rail yard. We'd like to note that that work is, of course, being done by the LIRR, and it's usually done after hours in coordination with the rail yard's operations of its trains to serve New Yorkers, and also depending on personnel availability. Both the developer and ESD representatives will continue to stress to the Long Island Railroad the importance of minimizing impacts to those in the community, using less noisy equipment, finding ways to redirect lighting that might be used for the safety of their personnel during the work. During the meetings and also in general, some quality of life concerns that have come up with regards to the Barclays Center operations. As you would note, the arena served as an early voting site and also as a polling site on election day. So there was questions with regards to the logistics for that. The arena has hosted a few community events. There have been a number of food drives that has happened on the arena plaza in coordination with City Harvest and also the Food Bank of New York. There have been some programs that have been facilitated via other community organizations, and that information is available on brooklynnets.com. We'll note that we expect NBA basketball to commence again at the arena. The first preseason game will be held this Sunday, December 13th. And then the official NBA season starts on December 22nd with the first game at the arena there. There will be no fans. There will be no audience. There will be no members of the public at the arena. This will be only NBA operations and basketball players. There's also some questions with regards to the oculus and lighting for the arena. For those who might not be familiar, if you're standing on the arena platform, there's a ribbon strip that usually has ads or quotes on it. And then when you're also standing facing the arena into the entryway, there was a static display, which was translucent and just had some Nets logo and imaging on it. More recently, that was changed from a static display into a more digital image. And in response to some community complaints and concerns, there's been a filter that's been placed on that image and a change to the setting, so that will minimize the lighting. I'll note that per the Oculus as well, that the hours for that, it's dimmed from midnight until 6 a.m. And there's actually a number that the arena has set up that folks can call 24 hours a day if there are any concerns related to the arena. So that number is available on ESD's website under the agenda for a number of quality of life meetings. I'll quickly run it off here just in case anyone's listening that's interested. It's 917-618-6661. As Marian mentioned, of course, during the quality of life meetings, there were some concerns and questions about Site 5. There are no updates on that. There are some suggestions with regards to future development and what that site should look like. There were also some notes with regards to neighborhood cleanliness, specifically along Atlantic Avenue. We're working with both the developer, the Long Island Railroad, and the Department of Sanitation to address the community's concerns about dumping, overgrown weeds, and an increased number of debris on that section of Atlantic Avenue. In addition, there was also some notes with regards to management at 535 Carlton Avenue, developers working with the management company on that and being responsive to resident concerns. And there's been a number of questions and complaints that have come in with regards to construction noise from B12 and B13. As Marian mentioned, both sites are in the foundation excavation phase. More recently, with foundational fittings being completed, the installation of foundational fittings being completed. For the last quality of life meeting, we actually received a very detailed spreadsheet with a number of concerns and notes and comments from those in the community, which included changes to start time, changes to maybe days in construction, the type of equipment that's used. Again, all of this in response to just folks working from home, learning from home, the real new normal that we're all having to adjust to, and realizing that living next to a construction site isn't the most favorable condition at the moment. Overall, we'll note that the developer for all sites are working within their permitted hours that's approved and heavily monitored by the Department of Buildings. There are times where the permit hours isn't reflective of actual construction activity. It's to ensure that there's the ability to space in workers coming into the site to ensure physical social distancing as temperatures are being taken, as preliminary delivery or operation needs to be done to get the site going and to ensure that the work can be done as efficiently as possible. There are opportunities where there might be weekend work, but that's again within specific hours and permitted times that's approved by the Department of Buildings. I'm happy to go into more details and to answer any specific questions about these meetings, but I'll note that the 2021 schedule will be distributed shortly. We expect that the next quality of life meeting will be sometime in January. I'll pause now to take any questions from the directors.
Thank you, Toby.
Before we go to any questions, let me just note for the record, for those especially who are on audio rather than video, that another director, Lee Warshawski, has joined us. Welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you? Dorian, the girl. Dorian Lane. Hi.
No problem at all. And there was a question, I believe.
I have a question, Toby. I'm just curious. I think you said about 20 or so folks who are on the video call. How does that compare to the in-person meetings? I would assume we have a lot more. Is it? Could just give me a feel for that.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I would say, like the November meeting had 32 participants. The September meeting had 20-something participants. I would say that that's a higher number than if we were in person. I think, personally, I think the virtual setting allows for more accessibility for those who might have other constraints, scheduling constraints. And then there are other factors that are removed, such as weather, commuting time after work. And so I would personally say that it's allowed for increased attendance from those who might not otherwise be able to make it physically to the Shirley Chisholm State Office building in person.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Yep.
This is kind of a quality of life issue. I've been hearing a lot of complaints here about in this part of the community about after hours work at the project. And I'm just curious as to what the need is and what the justification is for all of the after hours permits that are being issued now for construction on B12, B13, 4 and 5, and B15 and B5.
Sure. I mean, I can allow Scott to speak more into this, but like I noted during my presentation, some of the after hours work permits that are issued reflect hours that are standard for DOB regulations, and that it's not necessary or is not exact that the developer and the construction team are working within those specific hours. And then in other instances, it's to allow for, while construction itself might not commence at those hours, it allows for the workers to come on site to get tested and to go through the necessary COVID-19 screenings on time. It's to allow for some maybe early or preliminary deliveries to support the construction activities at the site. And then it also allows for safe social distancing, so you don't have hundreds of construction workers at the site at the same time. If there's specific scope of work that can be done at different hours and that can be phased in so that not all of the trades or not all of the specific scopes of work are done at the same time, it's to reflect that as well. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but if not, I think that's reflective of it. The Long Island Railroad's operations, again, are unique just because that work isn't directly carried out by ESD or by the developer. It's reflective of when personnel is available for the rail yard and also in coordination with the train activities that are there. And then there was an issue more recently this week where DEC was on site to do emergency work along Dean Street, but that activity was not directly related to the Atlantic Yards project. It was not done by the contractor and not overseen by ESD.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. I guess so. With respect to those after-hours permits, which are for marshaling workers and doing other things, is it the case that the actual work that's being done during those hours outside of normal working hours is stuff that's scheduled so as not to create a lot of noise?
Just to jump in, Gib, to your question, some of the work is, I'm not going to say it doesn't generate noise, but at B12 and B13 right now, it's excavation and foundation work, which is below the street level. Right now in certain parts of the site, they're 30 or 40 feet below ground. And B15 is totally enclosed, and B4 is enclosed up to the 28th floor. So there is work, construction activities that is happening outside of the normal 7 to 3 typical workday. But again, we're trying to have people come to the site instead of starting at 7 and showing up at 6:45 and having a congestion at the entrance to the site, while everyone's being temperature checked and making sure that everyone's got their masks for their morning meetings and kickoff. We're trying to spread the arrival and the departure of the workers throughout the day to minimize impacts and minimize congestion to create a safe working environment. So there is work, there is construction activity that does happen after the typical ending day, but it's, for the most part, almost all the work is finishing no later than 5:00 p.m. The sites are closed no later than usually 6, and until the next day. And if there is anything that is out of the ordinary that would be outside of those bounds, it's planned, then we'll put it in the 2-week look ahead to make sure that people are aware that something significant like the dismantling of a crane or that could have an impact, people are aware that work is about to go on.
So you're not working there under any schedule constraints that require you to go after hours in order to meet some type of deadline.
Well, we do want to get the buildings finished as soon as we can, but no, this is not because of any scheduling issues. This is good construction management.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Richardson. I'd like to ask a question when you're done.
Yes, I just have a question for Toby. You just describe just what the rhythm of COVID testing is for the workers and the work being done at the sites. How does that really work on a daily, weekly basis?
I can answer that.
Thanks, Scott.
This is done on a regular. It's not a daily. The testing itself is not a daily test or a weekly test. What we're doing is, for the most, everyone has their temperature checked when they come into the site. Everyone, masks are required. We have additional labor force that is, going to high touch areas that are, where there'll be contact, disinfecting, changing, kind of this like disinfectant tape that is in these areas. The capacity in the hoist cars, which you could normally, it's like an office elevator where you could cram a lot of people in to go up and down the building. That capacity has been cut in half. So really trying to, people are showing up at the site at different start times and different end times to promote distancing as much as possible. Windows, once they're installed, are being kept open to maintain airflow, and then working with our partners at the various unions that supply labor to the project, overseeing on-site testing on a regular basis, not a weekly basis. There was another round of tests that happened this week. They're not compulsory, obviously, but we do offer them on a regular basis, working with our partners at the building trades to provide them whenever possible.
Just as a quick follow-up, I mean, what is the positivity rate, and is that something that you've been tracking over the summer and fall months?
I'm knocking on wood. So far, we have not had any known positive cases that have already been tested.
No known positives. Okay,
it's a testament to the practices that our partners at Labor have put into place, working with the contractors from AECOM Tishman, who are building 2 of the buildings, and we're doing our best to create a safe working environment while still working to get these projects finished.
Thank you. Good update. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, Chair Cohen, is that okay? Okay, I know there've been a series of questions on the extended work schedule, but correct me if I'm wrong, I also think I've seen a notice that work would start at 5 a.m. So considering that we're heading towards the winter, what is it, solstice? So we have the shortest days now, and we have people working from home. They're under a lot of psychological and physical stress. So for 5 o'clock start to work, is that what's happening now? I know we looked at extending the workday at the end, but is the workday starting at 5 a.m.?
Toby, I can, Toby mentioned this, but this is Scott again. So there really isn't any work that's happening at 5 o'clock. But what does happen is that we do have some of the tradespeople come to the site. They'll start up the hoist before 5 o'clock. They'll start the crane up before, not before 5, sorry. In these early morning hours, they will start some of this equipment so that as the workforce begins to arrive, that people aren't forced to congregate waiting for the typical start day, which would normally happen. People would have their coffee at the site. You'd wait for the lift to be powered up before you get on. We want to avoid those things. So that's what's happening. And in limited cases, as Toby had previously mentioned, there might be 1 or 2 deliveries that happen into the loading docks to prepare for that workday, again, to promote efficiency. So we're not having people standing around and congregating to promote safety. But there's no heavy construction activity that's happening in these 5 to 7 hours. And thankfully, as you mentioned, December 21st is the shortest day of the year, but they immediately start to get longer, even by 10 seconds. So we're looking forward to the return of spring, as I'm sure everyone else is.
Thank you.
Maybe I missed it before I got on. And again, I'm sorry, I have vocal issues. Any update on the platform for over the track?
Hello, Director Southby. This is Toby. There are no updates on the construction activity for the platform. The developer continues to work with the Long Island Railroad on the design and also approval for the substantial completion of the rail yard. Once we have that information available, a presentation will definitely be made to the directors. Thank you for that question.
Okay, there's no contract. A contractor has been signed up yet.
They do have a contractor, but that information has not been publicly announced. They're waiting for, working through the approval issues with the Long Island Railroad before noting publicly who the contractor is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Marion, anything further on your report?
No, Steve, that is all. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate it, and thank everybody for the questions, and Marion, thank you and the team for the responses. At this point, I think we now proceed to whatever is left of the public comments. Are there any further public comments that we have?
Yes. Good afternoon again, directors. Toby Jayasimi. I'm just going to note for the record that we've received public comments that were sent via email for this meeting. I'm going to note the name of the commenter and also provide the details of what was shared. Comment from Norman Oder that there are 2 sites that have after-hours variances that exceed the construction hours announced in the 2-week look-ahead. He notes that the construction updates are prepared by Greenland Forest City Partners and circulated by ESD on ESD letterhead. He notes that there are paid staff and consultants who could vet the updates for accuracy. He also notes that there are extended hours that include the workday starting at 5 a.m. and lasting until 10 p.m., which is different than what is disclosed. He also notes that the construction hours are burdensome on neighbors who work from home and whose kids go to school from home. Additionally, Mr. Oder notes that the Long Island Railroad's after hours and early morning work is disruptive to neighbors. The next comment was from Andy Brody with concerns about the lighting from the arena. Notes that they are bright, super bright, and if it's possible to tone them down or have the hours reduced. Many have children who have to be in bed early, and note that there should be consideration of that. And then the next comment, the final comment, was from Catherine Keller. She notes that she's been collecting data from neighbors, specifically with regards to the construction happening at the project and also at the Long Island Railroad. Many are woken up at night. There was a specific example where there was jackhammering happening at night. She has to take measures to be sure to be able to get sleep, such as earplugs, ambient noise. She also sent to us the spreadsheet with a number of concerns that were also submitted for the quality of life meeting. There were a total of 17 entries. She requested that the quality of life meeting be more transparent and allow for more issues to be discussed in detail. And that also note that she will continue to collect information from her neighbors who are highly disturbed daily by the amount of development that's happening in the area overall. Those are all of the public comments that were received and noted for the record.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments from any of the directors? There being no further comments or questions and business having been completed, I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Any opposition? Well, I just want to, before adjourning, thank you all. I am glad we made it through our first video conference without any kind of technical foul-up, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Happy holidays to everyone on the call, and please be safe, and here's to a happy and healthy end of the year, and to a God bless the end of 2020.
Amen.
Here.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.